This video is about using the TI nspire to first enter a bivariate data set and then use the calculator to determine the equation of the regression line and the correlation coefficient between the two columns of data. And it's pretty simple. First thing I'm going to do from this home screen is go to the New Document option. And when I select New Document, I want to add a list and spreadsheets. And here it is. So this is where I'm going to enter the data. And I'm working on this particular problem from our problem set, where we're basically given a table of test scores of students. There are 8 students who take physics and chemistry. And here are the scores in their physics and their chemistry test, and we want to understand the relationship between their physics scores and their chemistry scores. And in fact, you can see part A and B tell us basically to write down the correlation coefficient and to write down the equation of the regression line, which we're going to have the calculator do all the calculations for us, and then we're just going to copy from the calculator the equation of the regression line and the correlation coefficient. So first of all, let me go to the very top of this column, and I'm going to call the first column physics, because that's our independent variable in this case. So I just use this little keyboard to type in physics and hit the Enter key to store it. And then I'm going to go to the second column, and I'm just going to call this chem. And store that there. And so now we have physics and chem, and I'm going to go to the first row and just enter the physics scores. And the way I do that is I just type in the number that I want and then hit enter. And I'm going to keep going, 8, 10, 11, 10, 5, 4, 12. And so those are my 8 physics scores, and then I'll go back to the first row and I'll enter the chem scores in the same way. 8, 11, 14, 13, 11, 7, 5, 15. So now that we have all of our data in here, I'm just going to go to the menu. And there is a statistics option. And within that, there's stat calculations, which is what we're trying to do. So I select stat calculations and go to linear regression. And here it is. So I can use the right arrow key, hit that a couple of times, and I'm given the options from my list. And I want to use the physics scores as my X values, and then I'm going to use the chem scores as my Y values. Make sure we get chem in there, and then I can just hit enter, I think, and there we go. So it just used some extra space in our sheet in order to give us the linear regression. Here's the form of the equation, mx plus b. And m, our slope, is 1.15, more or less. And b, our y-intercept, is a little bit less than 1, 0.97. And they give us the square of the correlation coefficient, but this is the actual correlation coefficient, about 0.96. So you have those numbers now in your calculator, and you can use those to answer the first 2 parts of the question, and you can go and enter other data sets as needed in order to have your calculator find the regression line and the correlation coefficient of your data.